What's that one cringe-inducing memory from years ago that you can't get out of your head? At the end of a great job interview, shook the guy's wrist instead of his hand, and held on like I meant to do it. Didn't get the job. A friend's husband had a job interview, and when he walked into the room there were 3 people, 2 men and a woman, sat behind a table. He started at the left and shook the first guy's hand, then the second guy's hand in the middle. When he got to the woman on the right, he put his right hand out, and to his horror he saw that she had a prosthetic claw thing instead of a right hand. She had obviously come across this beforehand, so she just put her left hand out, instead of just shaking hands using his left hand. He was so flummoxed that he did an awkward upside down handshake with his right hand to her left hand. He was convinced that had completely messed up the interview as his brain kept saying to him, "What the duck did you do that for?" He was amazed to get the job, and on his first day he met the woman again who told him that he thought the whole thing was hilarious. He worked with her for a few years and apparently every time they met, he'd do the weird upside down right left hand shake. Edit. Wow, this really blew up overnight. My highest rated comment ever. An added detail about this is that we met this couple when we were living in London. Neither us or the other couple were from London originally and had only met through where my wife worked at the time as a nurse at a large London hospital. The job interview was at a civil engineering company that was something to do with digging tunnels for London Underground. We were told the story while we were sat at the table at a mutual friend's wedding. When Head told the story, after we'd all had a good laugh, my wife said that she'd gone to school about 200 miles away from London with a girl who had a prosthetic hand and was known for her wicked sense of humor, and that she'd heard that she worked for London Underground in some capacity. Lo and behold, it was the same person. Not a mildly interesting story in its own right, but a nice little detail. Went for an interview and handed the person my coat when they were trying to shake my hand. Update: I did not get the job unfortunately. A few years later I went to another interview during which my stomach would not stop growling, which is one of my worst nightmares made real. Somehow got a job there lol. When they take your coat confused, you sit in their chair and begin interviewing them. The time my internet access was shot over a weekend, so I went to work as usual on Monday and stayed and worked all day and only found out it'd been fired the week before when I got home. Small, very high profile business. Everyone was acting weird all day. I soft broil myself to sleep in this memory. Edit. For all the people mentioning hours and legal technicalities, this was a very small firm. The owner was famous within the field. Think of a celebrity with a staff of 7 people. No hours, no manager, just a small group of people glad to work there. I was there as a freelancer. Who the duck doesn't call for a termination? I feel like this is the business's fault. I fell asleep in my high school history class. I was all the way in the back of the room, so the teacher never noticed. Until I farted in my sleep, so loud that it woke me up, and my head shot up and smacked against the back wall. Never heard the end of it. Edit. Holy cow, this is my first ever post on here. Thanks everyone. Edit 2. Since a couple people asked, at the time nobody really reacted. Except the guy in front of me was just kind of shaking. He turned around to look at me and was laughing so hard he was crying. Also should mention my crush was 2 seats over roof. So much stuff happened in the span of 2 seconds. Me pooping in my pants in 1st grade because I thought pooping in toilets other than my own is illegal. OMG haha. I'm actually impressed that you made it all the way to 1st grade without pooping somewhere other than your own toilet. Like not a hotel room, family member's house, daycare, store. Trying to run away from home when I was 6, only to stop at the start of the driveway because I was always told that it was dangerous to walk on the street without an adult. My parents have this really nice photo of me with my little backpack, standing there looking really conflicted. My sister ran away when she was like 11 or so. She left a note that said, "You'll never find me. I'm at neighbor's house." We found her. Farted in class during a test back in middle school. Everybody knew it was me, but I was too awkward to confirm or deny it, so I just acted oblivious. That fart must have been pretty awful because a bunch of clammets around me covered their noses with their shirts and the teacher cracked open a window. Just the complete awkward silence that followed the fart and the feeling of everybody staring at me in disgust still makes me shudder with cringe. Whenever I think about it, edit, I've been reading countless of you guys' embarrassing and hilarious fart stories, and it feels comforting knowing I'm not cringing alone here. So thanks for that. I did this too. Except I was asleep when I did it and farted myself awake, but I kept my eyes closed. Everyone was laughing and the teacher got mad, so someone said, "Miss, she farted." My classmates told me when I woke up at the end of class, but I just laughed it off. I was all OMG, are you for real? Hahaha, I cringe. When I think about it, I'm cringing right now. I was interested in a guy, but didn't know how to start a conversation with him. We were standing next to each other while preparing food for a barbecue, and I just thought it was a good idea to start a conversation with "I like the feeling of touching raw meat." Ha ha ha. How did he react? In the first grade I moved to a new school in a small town. 2 months in I would literally lose bowel function for no apparent reason. Totally watery and intense abdominal cramps. I was shy and didn't have any friends yet. I was embarrassed and would just sit there in my own mess until the teacher noticed. This went on every day. Eventually they sent me to the principal's office, and the nurse, teacher, and my parents thought I was just seeking attention. Despite packing 2 new pairs of unders and pants each day, I would still be soaked at the end of the day. Over the next 2 weeks I kept getting in trouble. I was held in from recess and had to sit in the hallway alone. When I ran out of clothes for the day, I had to eat lunch alone and spent at least half of my day sitting by myself in the hallway staring at the wall. When my parents finally took me to the doctor, they found a strange intestinal infection with no cure. It eventually went away. So for 1 month in a new school I was that shy weird kid who smelled bad and couldn't participate in any activities. I graduated HS 12 years later with the same small class of students. It wasn't until my 10-year class reunion that one of my classmates, now a nurse, told me they all felt so bad for me and never brought it up because they felt like I was being abused when they saw me sitting alone in the hall in my soaked clothing. This restored my faith in how kind other kids can be. That's nice. Glad it went away. Doing a practice for a play in front of a small crowd of like maybe 35-50 people when I chose my pants. Middle of my lines I felt the wetness and had to run off stage. I kept myself locked in a room the rest of the day. Once got my period in the middle of a scene in a junior school play. I was 12 over 13. That just sucks. Edit, didn't realize this would get so much attention. A few things. This wasn't my first. That is actually a much more traumatic story. Also no one else noticed, but those moments of panic till I could get off stage. It really does suck to be 13 to 18 as a woman when it comes to this stuff, lol. I was walking back to my car after a grocery trip and an older gentleman said hello to me as I walked past. My brain completely short-circuited and I responded with GGGGGG and quietly trailed off, averting my gaze and walking faster. This actually makes me laugh because it's believable, happens all the time, and yet is still funny. If it helps you at all, the old man probably had a light laugh then forgot about it too. This kind of thing happens all the time. Old man probably understands perfectly. When I was 16 I offered to take a girl I liked to the movies. I approached the ticket counter and asked for 1 movie ticket. Immediately realized I was an idiot, but was too embarrassed to rectify my mistake. She purchased her own ticket to the movie. Still haunts me almost 10 years later. That's definitely something I would do, mayo. Oh man. Some context. My best friend growing up was black. We were inseparable. We wanted to make video games together when we grew up, all that. Well, he went with me and another member of my family to the store. As we were driving, a man nearly ran into my other family member's car and my other family member shouted, "Effing inner." It got quiet in the car. Then my other family member said to my best friend in the back, "You're not the inner I was talking to," as a way to apologize. I was young, but even then I knew something awful had happened. It completely changed how I looked at my other family member and how my best friend looked at my family. We stayed friends, but I had to hang out at his house since he stopped coming to mine. Couldn't blame him. Super cringy, life changing. Edit. Yes, he is still black, and we are friendly with each other. Neither of us went into game design. And I guess it is wrong to edit the racist out of this, so it was my mother. We never really talked about it, and the only time I see her now is on holidays with my kids around. It's not forgiven, clearly, because it had changed the course of my childhood and more importantly my best friend's childhood. Edit 2. I'm astounded by the interest in my story. My wife and I were up late talking about it because of this, and she has prompted me to ask my mom about it, see if she even remembers it. My wife also thinks there is trauma here, not because I heard a racial slur, but because of the damage it did to my friendship and the loss of trust in the loved one. I never looked at it beyond being a horrible moment from my childhood. She also remembers me telling the story to her when we first started dating, some 9 years ago, when we were comparing stories about how our parents ducked us up. All that being said, we both came to the conclusion that there was definitely more damage done to my best friend. Anyways, I'll update if I do talk to my mom. GES. Cringed so hard I almost imploded. My dad caught me masturbating wearing women's lingerie when I was 15. Was your dad wearing lingerie or you? So I was having a psychological evaluation for a military school. The psychologist gave me 2 pieces of paper to draw a male and a female and name them. The male one was easy. I just have to draw myself and use my own name. I was having difficulty drawing a female and couldn't think fast, so my stupid drew the psychologist because she was cute. Then came the part where she started asking about the drawing. The male part went smoothly. When she asked about the name of the female, I said actually it was you plus a smirk. Then she straight up wrote the name of the drawing, actually it was you. I still cringe about it up to now. I did laugh at this story, so don't worry. We weren't allowed to sleep with our doors shut. I woke up earlier than everyone else most days, and on this day, decided to rub one out before everyone woke up. Grabbed the lotion, put it under my second pillow all smooth like so no one would see it if they walked by. About halfway through the deed my aunt raised me, rips her door open, which is positioned about 15 feet directly across the hall from my room and perfect view to my bed. I was so and I'm scared that I literally sat straight up, one hand under the covers. She saw me and goes, "Hey I," and starts walking over. I sat there frozen, like I saw a bus speeding directly at me, but I couldn't move, junk still in hand. She comes in my room and goes, "What's going on, sweetie? Are you okay?" I just awkwardly say, "Yeah, you just scared me." She laughs and sits on the bed next to me, directly on the pillow, and hears a crunch. Looks at me, stands up and picks up the pillow, looks back at me, mortified, and starts walking out. She didn't even turn back to look at me, just grabs the door to shut it and says, "I think you're old enough to sleep with this clothes now." I didn't leave my room all day. TLDR, aunt caught me wonkin', sat on my lotion bottle, became a big boy. Edit. Thank you for the award. First post that's gotten this much love. Fantastic that it had to be this post, lol. And for those asking, no, she is not hot. Oh good. I thought the crunch meant that she sat on your rig. Severe lack of social skills and a desperate desire for retention made me lick a gym floor for a solid 3 feet. Streak to try and impress a pretty girl. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, lol. In 8th grade, a boy told me he used to eat paste as a kid because it smelled like popcorn. He then found a glue stick and, somewhat hesitantly, ate a tiny piece. He was fairly popular, and I was an absolute weirdo, but I guess there's just something about impressing girls at that age. Doing a promposal for a girl who broke up with me 2 days after all. 3rd grade spelling bee. I misspelled field and lost it on stage. I lost on a go which I spelled confidently as a gal. Went to the beach with 3 friends, 2 boys, 1 girl, at some point in late middle school. We were swimming in the ocean and I got knocked down by a huge wave. When I stood up to face my friends, the boys started screaming. I looked down and there was my left boob on full display. Threw that bathing suit out as soon as I got home. It always the left one. When I was 16 I got set up with a family friend's daughter. We started dating in a long distance relationship. After a month or so it was school holidays and I went up to visit her. I didn't have a lot of money, but I wanted to buy her a gift. I settled on a beautiful jigsaw puzzle. She wasn't too happy about the gift because she was blind. Yes, I bought my blind girlfriend a jigsaw puzzle. In the moment it seemed very appropriate because each piece was unique, right? She can feel the pieces, right? Pure effing cringe. Still haunts me. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Wow, this is brutal. I was in my early 20s, had a girlfriend of 3 years and we were like 2 years into our relationship, and one time, after we had sex I said, and I still don't know what possessed me to say this, God this is so embarrassing. I said, where are you gonna find Rick this good? It was so awkward. And I think about it like once a month, because it is easily the dumbest thing I have ever said, and it makes me cringe so bad. Someone punch me in the face. If it makes you feel better, I had an ex that, during a hand job, said milk me mummy. Guess he thought it was the male version of choke me daddy. Could not continue. Edit. I'm glad everyone's finding so much amusement in my pain. My friends moo every so often, just to remind me of my past suffering. So for context, I went to a really sheltered Catholic high school, so didn't really know how the real world worked. My first job, when I was 16, and I'm being introduced to all my co-workers. One of them, named Morris, who was obviously homosexual, asked me if I was too. I wasn't, but wanted to let him know I was cool with it. Again, Catholic high school, and said no, but I'm open-minded about it. To which he responded, we are gonna work on that. What an awkward summer. I cringe every time. Oh my. Lol. Ran face first into a bench when I was 16 and cried haha. Only one person saw, and of course it was my crush at the time. Oof. Did he/she come and help you? At least. Cold've been an ideal opportunity to live out the plot of a romantic comedy movie. I fell into a fountain, not once but 3 different times in 3 different fountains, on a trip to Europe with a group of kids from school when I was in 7th grade. Of course my crush and his friends went on this trip and they proceeded to call me Fountain Girl till high school graduation. Are you really a mermaid? This was in school. We were playing a game where one person chased everyone else, and when they touched you, you had to go to jail. That meant you had to put your arms inside the torso part of your sweater, and the sleeves got tied around a pole. You had to get loose to be free again, either on your own or by the help of someone else. I think I was about 11 at the time. I got caught and tied to a pole, but I was wearing a hoodie with a zipper, so I felt incredibly smart when I unzipped it from the inside and ran away shouting ha. Thing is, I had forgotten to put on a t-shirt under the hoodie, and I was an early bloomer, so I basically showed the whole schoolyard my recently grown tits. Shudder. Until the lazy sentence I read it as you being a guy and thinking what a great move. Then that last sentence came in, bringing the wave of cringe. Touching tongues with my younger sister. We wanted to know why tongues tasted like. So we stuck our tongues out, booped our tongues together, and almost vomited. Edit. Jesus Christ, you guys. I thought I was the only one. Anyway, as a thanks for all the upvotes, I'll share another story. I used to lick cats because I wanted to help clean their fur. I was under 10 years old. Me and my sister used to do that to us kids. We thought it was funny and did it often, even in public. Definitely that time my professor asked what I did over the summer, and I wanted to say hanging around and catching up with sleep. All I managed to blurt out was sleeping around. That wasn't even true. Classmates may have envied you though. My sons and their friend kicked their ball into the middle of a little pond at our local park. I let them use my walking stick to try get it out, but they couldn't quite reach. A man passing by with his son offered to help. He got the ball, but dropped my stick. As he was reaching for the stick he fell in. He laughed, we laughed, and he went off home to dry up. He returned 10 minutes later, because once he got home he realized his phone was missing. His phone that contained baby pics of his son and newborn at home. We tried so hard to find that damn phone. I still feel bloody awful. Oh no. I was a bit drunk at a friend's wedding and decided to scroll all over 2 pages of her wedding book to fill up some space. Later someone was looking at the book and I heard them say, "Look at this. What sort of person does that?" I still feel bad when I think about it. Look at this. What sort of person does that? A celebrity once signed like that at my sister's wedding, and they actually scanned it, and even enlarged, and hang it in a visible place to be proud that a celebrity once visited them. Yeah, rural area. First post. In elementary, the little elementary playground and the older elementary playgrounds were right next to each other, and there was an imaginary line we couldn't cross. Me and my friends had the hugest crush on the big kid that played soccer. I was so stupid. I shoved a dodgeball up my shirt and yelled, "Hey, cute big kid, look, you got me pregnant, I have nightmares about it." Luckily he moved away. Trust me, he knows you were just a little kid. He probably doesn't even remember that. Was a kid, 10, in a family vacation in Hong Kong, and we were all in a souvenir store. I was walking around with my brother, 9, trying to find a cool toy to buy. It took me long enough to find one, but I was proud that I found it. I was amused by it and started talking about it to him. It was a large, stretchy and bouncy toy that had a cartoonish face on it. I was saying things like, "Wow, this is so cool," and proceeded to make the toy bounce a lot. I brought the toy towards my brother's face and shouted, "Boing, boing, boing," and that's when I realized that I wasn't talking to my brother anymore. It was a Chinese boy, probably 10 to 12 years old. He stared at me with the most serious face ever. I legit felt so ashamed and ran away. I didn't bother to get the toy anymore. I have never been so traumatized in my life that until this day I still think about that Chinese boy's poker face. I thought it was going to be a dildo. This guy in one of my classes in 8th grade I was friendly with BC. He didn't seem to be good friends with anyone else in the class. He was a nice kid, just maybe a little awkward, but we had good conversations about so hey. Then one day at the end of the period we were both packing up our stuff and he says, "Hey, do you want to go out with me next Wednesday?" Wasn't interested in him that way, and I was so off guard that I froze like a deer in the headlights until I finally stammered up, "I think my mom has plans, sorry, bye," and basically ran out of the room. I still feel bad about it. Every time I saw him in middle school and high school after that I felt terrible. Sorry, OMG, I did almost exactly the same and it also haunts me sometimes. We were in the school musical together and he was very nice, but I wasn't interested and was terribly awkward then. I froze up too and ran away. I don't remember what I said to him or if I even said anything. I was the one actually on the other side of this, for once. Had some repair dudes over to fix some stuff around my house. Everything went fine. Later that night I grabbed my phone and saw I had some missed text messages. They were from the repair dude who very clearly meant to send them to his GF. Pretty explicit texts followed by, "OMG, I'm so sorry, those were someone else." I have a terrible habit of leaving my phone in my room for hours without checking it, so I hadn't seen them until a couple hours after 2. So he was probably sitting there panicking because I didn't respond, lol. I just kind of chuckled and replied asking what site they wanted me to leave a review on. They had asked for one before they left, and then I just left a nice review without mentioning anything else. I mean, honestly, I knew it was an accident. Stuff happens, and they did good work for a cheap price, so no sense in burning that bridge. Life is full of little accidents. I will admit I showed one of my friends when we went out to lunch, and we both had a little giggle about it. Kind of in the, oh, to be young again sense, since she's married with a kid, and I'm basically an old wet hag. And yes, I did have the guy come by and do more work. No awkwardness on my end at all, because finding a repairman that does good work for a fair price can be so difficult. But I do feel bad that he basically sat and stewed for a couple of hours after accidentally sending those texts, and then probably thought I asked about the reviews because I was gonna blast him on the net, but nah. Shiz happens, and most times it's not worth going nuclear over. Edit. Just to clarify, there were no pictures involved at all, so I'm still fully in the camp of it being an accident. I know there are some deviants out there who do get their rocks off by doing stuff like accidentally sending explicit stuff, but there's no way with this. Or, if it was, he duped the hell out of me, because I'll probably go to my grave convinced it was an accident, lol. Finding a repairman that does good work for a fair price can be so difficult, even finding a repairman that does good work for any price. I had that one guy who said the wheels cannot roll properly on such dirty bar cleaned it, asked for money, and left without even checking if the wheels roll properly. They still didn't, because one was obviously broken, and that was clearly visible to the eye, even more clearly than the dirt. So my mom had won this prize at a big shopping center. She was allowed to take 3 guests for a day of shopping. That included gift cards at various stores and a $250 gift card at a restaurant of her choice for us to eat at. Anyways, it was a big deal, and they had a film crew come and tape some of it for their website. The reporter lady comes up to me when the food arrives, and she's like, "That looks fantastic. What do you get?" And I was caught off guard, so I look at the camera and go, "Gift cards." Ultimate cringe, and it took me about half a second to realize what she meant. When I think about it now, at least I can laugh about it. Edited for typos. Could be worse. You could have said "I like turtles" and been immortalized on the internet. I've shared this story before, but I still cringe when I think about my first solo date back in high school. I had a huge crush on this girl, thought she was really cool, and I loved her art, and I couldn't believe she said yes. We went to the zoo because it was free, and we were just broke teenagers, and we had a blast. Afterwards we went to grab some food at this place before having to split off to go home. Our trains were heading in the opposite directions and the entrances were across the street from each other, so I walked with her to her side to say goodbye. I closed my eyes and awkwardly leaned in to give her a kiss goodbye, and she went in more for a hug. I ended up headbutting her in the face and her nose started bleeding. I was so embered and didn't know what to say, so I just asked, "Are you okay?" She replied, "I think so." Still not knowing what to do, I just said, "Okay, bye," and then ran across the street to catch my train. It was so painfully awkward and embarrassing. I avoided her for weeks after that. Everyone who has ever kissed a girl had banged his head into her at some point. Absolutely a universal truth. I used to go to a boarding school in India a couple years ago, and annually they would take us out on these 4 to 5 day field trips. In a particular camping spot that we'd stopped at, the bathrooms were really old. So after a 6-hour bus ride to the camp spot, I'm taking a dump and the bottom half of the bathroom door literally just collapsed, and literally everyone waiting in line saw me halfway in the process of chisting. There was also this one time in school where the teacher gave us a free lesson and my friend and I were bored, and so we were thump fighting, and the teacher walks by and asked us what we are doing. And I, being the dumber I was, replied, "Where you street pract singourfengrengsks." My entire class looked at me weird, but I didn't really understand the innuendo until 3 years later, and here we are. So did you keep going? Accidentally called the teacher dad in year 3. I think we have all had that. It is so embarrassing. I'm a Canadian, and we had this show in the 2000s called Radio Free Roscoe. I was obsessed with this show. I watched it religiously on the Family Channel. My aunt had a friend who was a makeup artist for the show, and so she managed to get us on set to meet the cast and visit all the different places. My 11-year-old self was ecstatic. It was the most incredible thing to happen to me. My brother and my cousin went with us. We get to the set and it's amazing and everything I had hoped it would be. We got to see them film a scene and see all the behind the scenes stuff. It was incredible. We went to do the meet and greet with the cast, and I was so nervous but excited. I'm an awkward girl and super oblivious, especially when I'm nervous. Kate Todd, the female co-star, was being super sweet with me because I was the only girl in our group. She called me over to sit with her for the photos and used her hand to pat the seat beside her. Being oblivious, I missed the seat pat and went and sat directly on her lap. I'm 27 years old now, and I still remember her saying okay in a super surprised voice. I was mortified that I just sat on her damn lap like a baby instead of beside her like she intended. I honestly couldn't look anyone in the eyes again after that. I still cringe to this day thinking about sitting on her damn lap. She was super sweet about it, but I knew I had ducked up. I've read at least 100 of these responses and yours is the first to make me cringe. When I was 11, I was singing a video game rap at the top of my lungs. I thought I was alone. Then my dad yelled from upstairs for me to be quiet. Was it the Pokemon rap cause that just counts as outing dominance in the house? I walked into a pickup game of college volleyball players. Me, aren't we supposed to spread out in a grid? Rotate each time possession changes? Also me, getting it over the net with the receive. They were so nice, but this was not gym class volleyball. Edit. Spelling. Wait, are you not supposed to do those things? I played in an adult social league in my 20s and everyone was spaced out and rotated. Oh my god, do I not know how to play volleyball? Isn't the point to get it back over the net? Teach me. I accidentally sent implied gay pronoun to a customer at work instead of a friend. And now you have 2 friends. High school play. I start improvising. I don't even know why I did it. I just got so into the moment I forgot there was a script. God, I can't even describe it in complete sentences. I hate me in that moment. Edit. It was gospel, kind of like the Bible but confusing, non-linear and musical, and I was one of the stuck-up priests. When Jesus started talking about God stuff, I was technically supposed to be quiet, but I was all like, this man commits blasphemy, and I pointed to the crowd. I think, like, you heard it. You all heard it. Then when he started talking more, I was like, oh look at me and Jesus. I have 12 best friends and I don't wear shoes. Apparently that was the bad part. Takes a true actor to be so in the moment you forget there is a script. I was really quiet and stood up in the middle of class to say something. Finally speaking up. The room was silent. I slowly sat back down. I'm cringing just writing about this. So, I was in kindergarten. We were having a celebration because we had learned how to read by ourselves with almost no help. So, I was wearing shorts that day. Little did I know, they were too big for me. So I was walking. I was excited. I ran. My pants slipped all the way down. My underwear was on display to grades K. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It was so embarrassing. Haven't worn shorts unless it was 100 cents. I think everyone reading this has done something as bad in kindergarten. You people choose the mildest things to cringe about. Right, I grew up in an extremely sheltered household, so my brain just didn't understand / know what racism was, and we were trying to pick teams for basketball and I tried to organize by color. I was a stupid child. Dude. I, a very white child living in a very white neighborhood, had a deaf black foster sister. She went to a school for the deaf and all the friends she made there happened to also be black, and, you know, deaf. So in my young life, every black person I met was deaf and spoke only using sign language. I screamed the first time a black person spoke out loud to me and went, "You can talk." Today actually, at work one guy was opening a door with his back because his hands were full. Me, being stupid, I thought, I'm gonna help, and opened the door the rest of the way, causing him to lose balance because he didn't see me. He didn't fall, but I smiled at him holding the door with a half smile and he stared at me like if I was a weirdo. I guess it kinda looked like I tried to make him fall. Thank you. When I was 13 over 14 I had this crush on a guy who was an a-hole, but I guess I just thought he was hot. We were chatting on Snapchat and he told me he thought he liked this other girl and I started to panic. I sent him a photo of me crying because I was a socially incapable person and I thought that was the best move. He screenshotted it and sent it to 2 girls I hated because I knew they thought I was weird, but now I see that was fair and they all had a laugh over me crying. But this one was definitely on me. I was a weird kid. 13/14. Snapchat, thank you for reminding how old I am. The anonymous Valentine's Day card that I sent to a crush second year of uni in which I wrote the cringiest poem because I didn't know what else to write. In the 4th grade, I wrote on a piece of paper a love letter to my crush and signed my name in Sharpie, but then realized I wanted to keep it anonymous. So, I rewrote it on the other side without my name signed onto it. I glued the side I messed up on with liquid glue face down into a card and sent it right in his desk afterwards. Well, after the glue dried, you could see my name in Sharpie from the other side of the paper. It was mortifying when he walked up to me with the card in hand, showed it to me, and asked if I wrote it. When my aunt and uncle had a party when I was about 7, they filmed my uncle spitting fire and you can hear me saying you could roast a chicken on that in 10 seconds, and then everybody laughs at me. Still cringe thinking about it. Edit. A word. I had to reread this one. I thought you meant your uncle was rapping. My first grade sleepover birthday party. Someone gave me a present shaped like a Barbie, the Barbie rectangle. I told everyone very smugly and rather rudely, bratty, how I knew it was a Barbie, even though it's my first Barbie gift ever. Skipper was all I saw as I opened it, not Barbie like I was expecting, some knockoff. I got upset, obviously hated the object of my embarrassment, and ripped off her head and no one really understood why. Turns out, Skipper was just the name of that Barbie model and I never received another Barbie as a gift ever, even though I really wanted them. I only ever remembered the embarrassment of my bratty behavior, then poor behavior over that embarrassment until this question was asked on Reddit before. So it was only recently in my 30s that I even realized, TL. Doctor, I was gifted a literal ducking Barbie and freaked out for absolutely no reason, never getting a Barbie again because of my 6 years old ego. Jesus Christ, this hurts. Accidentally touching my friend's nuts in 5th grade. We were playing tag. I accidentally full on grabbed a guy's junk while playing some flag football type game in 9th grade. Still want to chop my hands off for their sins, lol. Oh lordy, so my mother told me that when I was little I would run around the neighborhood naked. True freedom. There are two that I never forget. 1. When I was younger, around 2nd grade, I played this thing called the acorn game. I'd gather all the acorns in our yard, literally all of them, front and back. I usually filled 2 buckets of acorns, and then it'd go into the backyard and stand in front of this one specific tree and chuck acorns at it. If an acorn hit the tree, it'd fall down, then pop back up, and resume throwing acorns. My brother has video footage. 2. When I was in between 4th and 5th grade, I really wanted to be a vet. My sister was about to start college, and she was at her orientation, and my sister was on the pre-med track. The guy leading the meeting started asking who wanted to be a nurse, doctor, dentist, etc. And here I am, a little 10-year-old anxiously waiting for him to say vet. When he finally did, I raised my hand high in the air, and only my hand was up in the air. The guy leading the meeting said, "I don't think you're a freshman," and everyone in the entire lecture hall turned and looked at me and laughed. I know a lot of them were parents and they were laughing because they thought it was cute, but everyone was looking at me, and the guy at the front made fun of me. While I agree that is super cute, I would have been mortified and probably cried on the spot or as I was running out of the room. Also, good for 10yo. You being so brave and so proud of what you wanted to be as an adult. Just one. In high school I messaged a boy I really liked and told him I liked him, and he didn't feel the same way. Okay, fine, no problem. Then we were in the same homecoming group where everyone had dates, but the two of us, so when it came time to take pictures, we had to stand next to each other as if we were together, lol. Clammett, do you like Linkin Park? Me, IDK, I've never been there. I hear that it's pretty nice there this time of year. When I told everyone that I was auditioning for the national talent show in my country and got rejected after singing 2 verses in the producer's auditions, that made for an awkward return to school. Well, that means you were probably average. They send the bad ones through to the televised auditions because it makes good TV apparently. 5th grade, sobbing in front of the whole school when I lost the geography B to my best friend. I beat him next year though, then went on to get my kicked at regionals. Posted this in another thread, but this should work here too. One time I was working with a buddy, we were 19 to 20, who wasn't exactly smooth with girls. He saw our boss daughter walk by, who he liked, and wanted to impress her. He turns to me and tells me how he has a really good Groot impression. I sit there wondering what brought that on, and then see her walk by, and it clicks that he thinks his Groot impression will impress her. He then asks me rather loudly if I wanted to hear his impression. I look at him and say, "Please don't." Almost as if he didn't even hear me, he shouts at the top of his lungs, "I am Groot." I stood there doing a mild facepalm while she stops what she's doing and looks at him with mild confusion. She then walks away immediately. I don't know how he didn't get him buried by that. BTW, his impression was a 4/10. Entertaining for an 8-year-old, not so much for a 19 to 20-year-old girl. For a second I thought she was 8. High school. Enough said. My answer is NSFW, but I can't ever go a day without thinking about it, so I'll share. An ex-boyfriend of mine was obsessed with anal. He once tried to put a stick of deodorant up in me. He was just absolutely mad for it. Anyway, one night after being out drinking, we were going at it, and the thing happened that everyone who does anal is scared of happening. Poop everywhere. But instead of being nice and normal about it, he was horrible. He was so mean. He acted like I did it on purpose, and it was the most foul thing ever, and he also ignored me for weeks. He made me sit in the shower for ages and he refused to speak about it like an absolute child. Made me feel like absolute chiz, excuse the pun. Certain he told all of our friends. It makes me cringe in embarrassment every time I think about it. This is a way a bigger reflection of the kind of person he is. Chiz happens, especially with anal. I'm sorry he made you go through that. I was that anon girl that would hiss at people. Story, I was constantly bullied in a previous school, and any friend I made it very clear with their actions that I was replaceable. So constantly outcasted, my friends kept leaving me, and my parents were I was an emotionally ducked. Then I met two amazing people, and I thought, hey, these two are cool, and they like me for me. I can't let anyone take them from me. So every time someone came to our table I would hiss. I regret it cause it caused more bullying. But my best friends never left, so yeah, been besties for 11 years now. So I have a weird offshoot from this story. My younger brother and I used to hiss at each other like cats when we were younger, and we did it all the time when we played. I never hissed at anyone at school or anything like that. But recently, I was walking between building at school. I'm a PhD student, and there was this group of preppy undergrads walking the opposite direction towards me, and they weren't moving over on the sidewalk. So I hissed. As a 24-year-old adult, I hissed at them. It was completely automatic. I didn't even think about it and it just happened. I was so mortified, but my partner thinks it's the funniest thing ever. I blame it on being absolutely exhausted by grad school that week, lol. In 8th grade I got my first laptop. Being 13 I had saved some naked lady pictures on my PC. Two girls from my club borrowed my laptop to use the webcam. Went to look at their newly taken photos. Found naked lady pics instead. I died. I always had my material stored as a zip file. You could always rename it to ABC and go hide it in the system files. Told my substitute teacher, she was 27. I loved her on the last day of high school. By accident. Worst part is she was really hot too. I think everybody had one hot substitute teacher. It was hard to concentrate around her for me, so you're definitely not alone. The time I wore all black to school after I didn't have my favorite cereal for breakfast, telling everyone that I had lost a loved one. My mom pulled me aside and told me her inbox was flooded with "so sorry for your loss." Everyone thought my grandma died. I was in 3rd grade. In 5th grade I went to school on Halloween costume day completely dressed up like a pirate. Makeup, costume, hair, everything. Walked into school only to realize no one else was wearing a costume and that dress up day was tomorrow. Had to wait until lunch for my mom to bring me new clothes. That's one of my top fears. Even now that I'm a teacher I have the exact same fear every time there is a non-uniform or dress up day. I have several. 1. I accidentally drooled in front of my best friend / crush after not pausing to swallow. She noticed and asked about it. Freshman year of high school, girls' locker room. 2. I pretended that I was schizophrenic during PE. I think I scared 3 of my classmates. I don't know why I did this. 3. My Chizchi fanfics shudders. 4. My old sketchbooks. I'm still looking for a fire pit to burn them. 5. I think that I tortured my old dog Joey. He was adopted before I was born, so he had to put up with toddler me. I remember specifically putting him in a Babbitt cradle. Then in 2nd grade I got 2 new puppies who made his days a living hell. They legitimately tore up his foam bed. Joey was moved to my grandparents' house where he spent the rest of his elderly years with my grandparents' other 2 elderly dogs. He died at 18 years old and is buried in my grandparents' backyard. I'm sorry, Joey. Phew, I don't think you tortured your dog. That's pretty normal behavior for a little kid. It's not your responsibility because you were a toddler. If you caused actual distress, an adult should have stepped in and helped out. But it doesn't sound like you actually did. Sometimes dogs don't get along too, especially puppies who don't know better yet. I understand the feeling of cringe, but I just don't want you to blame yourself. It sounds like Joey had a long life, and I'm sure he enjoyed times with you. Also hold on to your sketchbooks and fanfics. I know it's painful and makes you cringe, but later on you will be happy to have them. Time really helps you feel less connected to it actively, and it'll just become something nostalgic, and you might even cherish your younger self's hard work at trying to improve. Sorry for the long response. I went to school one day without underwear. I don't remember why, just that I was wearing a skirt and tights/nylons and no underwear. One of the boys saw that I was not wearing underwear and told everyone in my 3rd grade class, to which I insisted I was. It was just invisible. This happened when I was 8 years old, and I'm close to 50 now, so you know how long this memory has stuck with me. I was a teenager and had gone to the local big shopping center, mall, with a few friends. Being dumb and honestly trying to impress one of the girls, I started insulting another girl behind her back. First girl left, and I went to send a text about something girl 2 did, sent to the wrong person. Girl 2's mum was giving me a lift home, and she told her mum as soon as we got in the car. Cringe for so many reasons. I was bullshitting my way through a presentation in college on tanks in World War II, and this kid just got so sick of my chiz that he called out from the back of the class and corrected me in front of the whole class while my professor avoided eye contact with me. Never bullshit stuff about WWII technology. There's always one kid who knows his stuff and will correct you. Friday afternoon at my internship. Just me and my manager. Swung cubicle over. Normally my fart technique made things silent. I thought it was safe. Let it rip and knew it was going to be very audible. I slammed the desk and cleared my throat to try and cover up the noise, but that only brought more attention to me. She clearly heard it and stopped typing for a minute. Most painful minute of my life. We pretended it never happened and never spoke about it, thank God. Reminds me of the story I've seen of the person who thought they'd drop a book on the floor to cover the sound. They mistimed it. Dropped the book on the floor, made a huge bang. Everyone turned to look at them. Then they farted. Loudly. Made everyone think they'd tried to get their attention, so they would all hear it. So when I was 8 or so, some of my parents' friends came over, and they brought their son, who was a few years older than me. I used to really idolize that kid for some reason. He just seemed cool, and was always friendly toward me. So this particular day I happened to be lounging around in my pajamas watching television, and I hadn't expected company. I don't know why, because wearing pajamas, especially as an 8-year-old boy, is not that big of a thing, but I was absolutely mortified when the kid came into the room to say hi. So I ended up running to the closet nearby and shutting the door. This was right in front of the kid. My parents couldn't get me out. The kid came up and through the door was like, "That's totally fine, but there's nothing for you to be embarrassed about. Come out and play. If you want you can go change first." But I wasn't having any of it. I was by this point more embarrassed about my reaction than being caught in pajamas, so I couldn't bring myself to come out until the kid and his parents left like 2 hours later. Or, this is perfect little kid cringe. Was so weird and emotionally confused at that age. When I was in 5th grade I dyed my hair in different colors. I was in a public swimming pool. I went to the toilet where 2 boys asked me if the dyed hair would also suit one of them. Before I could have said anything they also asked me if I was heterosexual. I was in 5th class and had no clue what it meant, so I guessed it was an insult and just walked away. Nowadays I understand that the boy just wanted to know if coloring his hair would make people think he is gay. I couldn't stop saying boom shakalaka in 4th grade. Like I couldn't stop, it was like I was addicted. Edit. I just realized it wasn't just boom shakalaka, it was boom shakalaka boom boom. I'm an effing idiot. Edit too. Holy cow, this blew up, can't believe that I'm happy I was that cringe. The very first night my now wife spent at my place had only been dating a week. but I was super into her. We got chisty drunk before bed. The next morning I forgot she was there, still technically drunk, and ripped a once in a lifetime epic fart that was both echoing through the hallways and melting paint off the walls. I remembered she was there when she audibly laughed and said, "Oh my god." I pretended to still be asleep instead of addressing it. To this day I'm amazed she stuck around after that, but we are now happily married. Anyone that can survive that and still stick around is definitely a keeper, even if she still loves telling people that story years later. In 9th grade, I wrote a radio DJ a really nasty email because he didn't like Limp Bizkit. I got drunk in a foreign country, started talking to this guy because we both spoke a language not common in the country. He was asking me why people were looking at him funny and why they were scared of him when he got to the airport in this country. I meant to say that his beard and accent made him look like a Russian mobster, but I forgot the words and told him that he looked like a terrorist. I spent a lot of time at my great-grandparents' house as a kid. My room didn't have a lock on the door. I was a preteen, and it was the middle of the day, super bright in my room, and I was 100% naked, just laying on the floor and diddling. My grandma started coming in and I screamed, "UHHH, don't come," and she came in and saw everything, and just quickly left. I went out a little while later and said, I was really warm. So I took my clothes off. She just stared at me, silent. She wasn't mad or anything. I just stood up and went back to my room, and she has never mentioned it since. There was some bachelorette party at a bar I was at. Bride-to-be had a shirt that said "suck for $1", so my drunker paid her $1 and proceeded to lift her shirt and suck on her titty. It wasn't until after I saw there were little candies sewn onto her shirt that you were supposed to suck on. That's really strange to me. Is this a common thing for brides to do? I was a kid. I refused to take a hanky or tissues with me as my mom was forcing me to because I'd just finished a cold. I sneezed in church during Ma. Just neon yellow snot all over my light pink dress. I tilde a little when that memory comes back. I had a black eye from playing baseball when I was like 7, and on the way up to visit my uncle we stopped at a Burger King, and I got a shiny Pokemon card. My uncle asked me where I got the shiner, and I told him Burger King gave it to me. Honestly, that's more funny than cringe. I remember I only ever got one shiny card from a restaurant, and it was McDonald's. It was Weedle. Oh my. You watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.